right here from Berlin as we head over to our casters for Misfits versus Splyce.
It's Vedi time. Let's go! League of Legends. Thank you very much, Sjokz. I'm Aaron Medic Chamberlain, joined by my partner in crime, Andrew Vedius.
How you doing, mate? You ready for some good League of Legends?
I'm all right, Manine. It's one better than mate.
Nice. It is. We already had some great League of Legends today over in the LPL and LCK. Hopefully, Europe can live up to your expectations because we have Misfits versus Splyce. And my eyes are going to be on the Misfits mid laner, Sencux. This guy has been on a wealth of champions. Lulu has been the one that his team has often put him on. And I want to see a little bit of a different playstyle from him. I want to see these roaming champions that he's had a lot of success on in the past. I want to see him having a little bit more control and seeing if he can get these side laners ahead. This
is where he has always been good and where Misfits have played well. If they play around their bottom lane, if they play around their side lanes, Splyce have had 3 weeks to prepare for this draft and known they've been playing up against Misfits since last week. I'm sure they'll have a lot of different things where they're trying to shut Misfits down.
Now, remember that Akali is open, but what we've seen in the past is that Akali isn't really a high priority pick for either of these teams, and Urgot is going to be the first pick. Something that Alphari has been practicing in solo queue, something that we've been seeing over in the East pretty much be picked or banned every single game. He has really risen in popularity, and why we can get a little bit more into as we jump into the game, but Misfits pretty confident with their first pick.
Important to note that it's not only a top lane pick, can be flexed towards the mid lane as well. Wouldn't fall into that roaming utility model though that we want to see from Sencux. Splyce now lock in the Varus for themselves. Kobbe on a utility marksman once again.
Ooh.
Oh, I thought you were still drinking. I was going to keep going.
Engage going to be locked in for Ornn. Now, you kind of expect that to be up towards the top lane. No Scion pick. Remember that it was permabanned against Splyce when they went up against each other in the quarterfinals. We'll see how things play out throughout the rest of the draft. But already Splyce got themselves a strong bot laner. Actually going to go back to the Tahm Kench into the Alistar. And having spoken to Peter Dunn, he says that this is something that they recognized after their quarterfinal, was that even after nerfs, the champion is still viable and can work into certain champions and Misfits. They are going for one of their tried and true Alistar picks, which for Mikyx, he didn't have the best performance in the 3rd place match, but still a big comfort for him.
Yeah, he's played that 7 times across the course of the split, so he'll be very comfortable on that pick. Want to see him roaming around, want to see him trying to impact the map. Getting into the second ban phase, though, we start to see the junglers prioritized by Splyce. They remove the Olaf. Rise taken away from Nisqy here by Misfits.
Now, I'm curious as to what direction Splyce take this. I feel they're going to save their mid lane pick for last, so they can guarantee Nisqy the strong matchup. If we are expecting the jungle pick right now, then we could look at something like the Zac is still available. Sejuani is another champion that is up for grabs. Trundle is another big popular one, and Skarner, of course. Yep. So the jungle pool is still quite open, depending on what Splyce wants. And given that they have the engage from the Ornn and peel from the Tahm Kench, they kind of have a wealth of options.
Yeah, you don't need to pick something that can engage for you here. You don't need to pick something that will peel for you. You have, as you say, basically the full bag of tricks to play with for Xerxe. Maybe we'll even see him go back to something like the Kayn, which we have seen already today. Even the Warwick with some of Xerxe's signature picks.
So just a couple of hovers right now from the side of Splyce. Yet to know what they're going to lock in. A lot of options. There we are. Going to be tried and true. Pretty standard. The Sejuani lock-in. So there's an extra bit of engage. You can either use that as your primary engage or follow-up from Odoamne's Ornn. But I think that for Misfits now, you could just go for something like the Trundle. It does well into the Sejuani. You have a bit of early skirmishing. You scale nicely into the late game as well. Misfits outside of the Alistar are kind of lacking a little bit of engage, but I think Trundle paired with the Alistar, I think the synergy as the two works perfectly well.
Aatrox still available for them as well. They'll grab that. Could be mid Aatrox, could be top Aatrox.
It could be flexed to either, yes.
Lots of different opportunities still here for Misfits. They have their final pick, and that will probably show us where things are likely to go. Although
I don't think it will.
No, you can still flex the Aatrox and the Urgot around. So just looking towards that jungler, as you said, Trundle is a very real option here for Misfits. Swain as well. Okay.
Aatrox jungle then.
Possibly Urgot jungle.
I have not seen an Urgot jungle.
I have heard whispers on the wind of an Urgot jungle, but Aatrox jungle also makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll have to wait. You have 20 seconds until the ultimate decision is made. Splyce need a mid lane champion. they don't know what the mid lane champion is. So maybe they just go for something safe, something blind. Cassio, big comfort pick for Nisqy, something that he showed a lot of success on in their quarterfinal matchup against Schalke, and their third place matchup back in spring. Yeah. Right now, it looks like he has gone under the assumption that it is into the Swain. We're sitting on the jungle Aatrox. What's your money on? You got 20 seconds left. I'm
going to go with jungle Aatrox because I think it is what you said originally, and you're a better analyst than I am.
You got 15 seconds to change your vote.
My heart says jungle Urgot, so I'm going to say jungle Urgot, but I think it's Aatrox.
All right, 10 seconds.
What's your vote?
I think it's a jungle Aatrox.
Okay.
I have not seen it recently. Ooh.
Oh, 3, 2, 1.
Locked.
Yeah.
So here we go. We got the Swain up in the top lane. That's their AP damage that they feel they were lacking. The Kaisa could also build AP as well, but more conventionally, you do see the AD build. It depends on what the team needs. Now, this is quite interesting.
What's this team doing on Misfits side?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
Well,
we will
we'll figure it out together. Yes. But I feel like they have strong side laners. You can put Aatrox in a side lane. You can put Urgot in a side lane. You can put Swain in a side lane. You imagine there's going to be a lot of teleports being run as well. So the option for a 1-3-1 is definitely there. I feel like their team fighting is good. Having a lot of bruisers is always extremely valuable. And then Kaisa with her mobility is always going to work. I think that the Splyce composition is a little more well-rounded. You have very clear team fight, really strong Baron control. You have good engage, you have good peel. Scaling is good. You have a solid mid-game spike. Misfits, I feel like they're reliant on a bit of an early game lead with this Aatrox, because we do know that one of his issues is that he does fall off later into the game. So I'm kind of looking at Misfits to kind of get ahead in the early game, mainly around mid and top, outside of their conventional playstyle.
We are going to get onto Summoners for game 1 of the regional qualifiers. The gauntlet has been laid down, and both these teams will want to run all the way through it. It is very interesting to me that it's Misfits, the team that's experimenting, that's bringing out these new picks. Alphari hasn't played Swain, Maxlore hasn't played Aatrox, Sencux hasn't played Urgot at all this split. And they've only had a week to prepare, whereas you look at Splyce and it's like, yeah, this is a Splyce comp. Like, this is exactly what I'd expect if I was thinking about Splyce.
Yeah, and kaSing, even known for the Tahm Kench, where he made his own move, the kaSave, using the ultimate at the last moment to bring his AD carry to safety rather than having the consume. But there is a lot to talk about. Let's start off with the Urgot, because it is something that many Western fans may not have seen. Over in the LPL and LCK, we mentioned it earlier, very high in priority. It's pretty much first picked or first banned. Today, in both the LPL finals and the LCK gauntlet, it was in every single game. One of the reasons for this is because it's considered a very safe blind pick. We might have to stop for a second. There's a bit of engage.
I think they'll all be fine here. And Mikyx gets the aftershock for a little bit of tankiness. kaSing gets bumped away.
All right, a bit of trading.
We can talk back about the Urgot now.
Yeah, but basically he's a very safe blind pick. Many pros say that he doesn't really have a bad matchup, but at the same time, he doesn't have any amazing ones either. He's just very safe. He has good wave clear. He has decent poke, but also he's very difficult to kill. Spoke to a couple of junglers, and they basically said that, yeah, trying to gank an Urgot is really scary because the shield makes him deceptively tanky. He has a surprising amount of damage from his shotgun legs that also does percentage HP damage. And so generally he's just a safe blind pick, and because he can work both in a side lane and in team fights, he's pretty well rounded. You're likely going to see a very early Black Cleaver, and if he goes for Righteous Glory, that implies he's going more towards team fighting. But if he gets something like a Frozen Mallet, then you're looking at something like a split push Urgot.
Both the junglers may meet up with each other now. Not going to happen. If you're playing these sort of safe picks without bad matchups, the person you want to do it to in playoffs is Nisqy, because Nisqy has this playoff buff. He continually plays incredibly well across the course of playoffs. We saw it in the quarterfinals. He is the key carry for Splyce when they get into these do-or-die situations.
Definitely true. The guy had a fantastic performance in the quarterfinals, and he was the guy that Xerxe was playing a lot around in the early game. But unfortunately, on the Sejuani with a Cassio, you don't expect a huge amount of pressure in the early game, and this is going to be very farm-centric from the side of Splyce, gearing more towards that team-fighting style that they found a lot of success with during the regular season.
So let's move our eyes over from the mid lane towards the jungle here. Maxlore taking a bit of a slow route, got his Scuttle Crab now, has just hit level 3 on the Aatrox.
Yes, so this Aatrox pick, very unique in the jungle. We haven't really seen it in the wild in the meta, especially after some pretty substantial nerfs that he recently received, but he is still very strong in the early game. We do see the jungler hanging around bot, but nothing gonna happen, so I can just continue with the Aatrox. And the thing about it is, yes, it's strong in terms of early game. It has decent jungle clear because of the amount of AoE that it has available to it. And in terms of early skirmishing and damage, you would imagine that it's great. Combine that with the ultimate too, potential for tower dives could be very strong as well. You look at things like the Urgot and you also look at things like the Swain. Both are very effective at being able to set up dives because of their bruiser nature and ability to soak up a lot of damage, combined with the fact that your ultimate can resurrect you on the Aatrox. So I feel like that it has the potential to be a strong early game jungler, especially into a tanky jungler like the Sejuani. But whether or not he successfully finds those early ganks is the next question.
There's a lot of different places he can look. Misfits traditionally as a team have been focused around this bottom lane. Get Hansama ahead, get Mikyx ahead. That's what they're trying to do now as Mikyx jumps in. Knockup won't quite connect on towards Kobbe, and it's just a bit of a difficult situation when your support is roaming away. You need to make sure that you are in a safe spot, and that's exactly what Kobbe did.
So I have my eyes on Xerxe right now. He is completely lit up on the top side of the map. It is fascinating that Misfits are playing more towards the top side, given that their priority is often been trying to enable Hansama and Mikyx, trying to get this duo ahead. And by playing the Kaisa and the Alistar, you can trade back and forth occasionally, but in terms of the 2v2, you often give the edge to the Varus because of how Kaisa is considered fairly weak in the early game. But Mikyx trying to strut his stuff already, but this is the risk. You see you go in, kaSing has the peel, and then the chase down coming out from the Varus and the Tahm Kench can be really devastating. So Mikyx has to pick his moments when he looks to try and trade.
Maxlore is trying to get Misfits' vision a little bit deeper in here. It's actually, if you look across the entire bot side river, Misfits control the majority of it. Control ward there, ward towards the blue buff of Splyce as well. Maxlore, unfortunately, standing on a Splyce ward himself, which means he will be spotted as he comes down towards this bottom lane.
So yet to find any successful early plays. And while the game is still in a fairly neutral state, I want to quickly run through some of the runes that we have from either side, because you'll notice that there is a Kleptomancy on top of Alphari Swain. Going to try and increase that gold generation and get Swain to that power point that much earlier on into a tank matchup. It makes a lot of sense, just trying to increase that gold generation. So quite like this. Usually we see things like the phase rush so that it helps stick to your targets. So a slight shift there. We also see the Dark Harvest onto Maxlore. There's no electrocute now after the nerfs. After the nerfs, many junglers and players really moved away from the electrocute and now prefer either the Predator or the Dark Harvest option. I believe we saw on his Evelynn in the third place match as well. Sencux also running the Unsealed Spellbook. For anyone that has seen the Aatrox will know that this isn't too uncommon. He'll often shift between the Teleport, the Ignite, Exhaust. Sometimes you'll even see Heal, Ignite, Urgot, depending on what summoner spells he has available to him. So there's quite a big shift in terms of priority in rune choices. But for Splyce, a lot of it is very standard. A lot of it is what we've often seen. So a lot of innovation coming out from the side of Misfits. You already talked about earlier. A little surprising, but for a game one, a best of 5, I think it's fine.
Mikyx coming in for the gank here on towards Nisqy. Dodges away from the Noxious Blast, but with the control ward in the bush, Nisqy will be safe for the moment. Nice to see Mikyx being proactive on the map as well, moving around, trying to help out Maxlore, joining with his jungler. And now they're setting up down towards this Ocean Dragon. Splyce have to be a little bit cautious, but should be okay for the moment as they do realize that Misfits have total vision control down towards that bottom side.
Impressive how often Maxlore has actually been around his lane to look for a gank and has been able to keep up in farm with Xerxe. He actually got that level 6 first. His jungle clear has been very effective. He has now started off the Drake, given that both mid and bot are pushed. Misfits with a numbers advantage feel confident to secure this one. 7 minutes into the game, Misfits controlling a lot of the map right now.
Ocean Drake's so good for them in the laning phase as well. It's one of the best times to have it. And if they go into that 1-3-1 later on, if they use their side waves, that Ocean will just help keep them bolstered up. Having a pretty strong early game at the moment, but traditionally when we see Misfits get ahead, they get a buttload ahead. Usually about 3,000 gold ahead in wins. They get an extra tower at the 15-minute mark as well, whereas Splyce, even when they're winning, tend to take the game just a little bit slower. Yeah,
this is just a slight difference in playstyle as we see a bit of an engaged bot. Misfits trying to find their early lead.
Kobbe flashes away. Mikyx goes for the flash as well. Could be caught underneath the tower here. kaSing with a slow, with a tongue lash, and they get the chase down. First blood goes across the Splyce. Kobbe levels up, gets the chain of corruption down. Hansama eaten up, suppressed in the belly of the beast. Tries to get away the killer instinct and the flash used to keep him safe.
Good use of the ultimate there from Hansama to get away with his life, but devastating mistake for Misfits in the 2 versus 2. Splyce find themselves an early kill, and it's exactly what we were talking about earlier, Medic. The reality is, if you try to hard engage on the Alistar, the turnaround potential with the Tahm Kench and the Varus is very strong. They have a lot of slows, they have a lot of way to close the gap, and they successfully find a kill onto Mikyx.
Great stuff for Splyce. Keeps that gold pretty even as well. Only about 200 the difference between the two. And once again, we see Mikyx roaming, but Nisqy's done a very good job of pushing up the wave and then being safe, keeping himself behind that minion wave whenever possible.
So we can have a look back here. Mikyx thinks that his AD carry is by himself, so he goes for the all-in. The initial play isn't that bad. Hansama also has the ulti. The mistake here is the flash from Mikyx. He didn't need to overcommit that hard. I believe he thought that he could get that last tick of the stun, but he didn't have it ready because of when Kobbe flashed away. The final tick came in after the stun had already fully charged, and now we see another gank bot lane from Splyce.
Pistol Voyage was used down here. Xerxe misses the Glacial Prism, but Mikyx's not in a good situation at all. Trying to turn it back around on towards the 4 members of Splyce who caught him down, but he's cut down in the river. Kill given over to Kobbe.
Love this play from Splyce. They know that there's no flash on Mikyx, so they make a return gank. Utilize the ultimate from kaSing to get him from behind. Have Nisqy roam down through the river. Perfect setup from Splyce. They secure another kill.
We wondered which team would play out the early game stronger. It's been all Splyce up to now. Nisqy chasing onto Sencux here. Maxlore on his way. Hansama almost has the ultimate available as well, so could have seen Nisqy in a sticky situation, but he backed out just in time.
You can just see how little damage Nisqy took. Now, admittedly, Sencux took. Nisqy doesn't actually have that much AP early on, only sitting on the tier right now. But often, level 9 Cassio, that would be very, very scary. So let's have a look back at how this play is set up. Very clean from the side of Splyce. You have the Tahm Kench ultimate come in from behind. Now this forces Mikyx to run up through the river. You even have kaSing coming in through the tri-bush, and this is a perfect trap setup from Mikyx. And I love this use of the miasma too, because Nisqy's expecting Mikyx to try and jump towards him to create a gap between him and the rest of Splyce. With that down, he's obviously not able to use his dashes, which meant that Splyce guaranteed themselves another kill.
And while that replay was going on, Maxlore did get the Rift held, so he has been able to do something in the early game. Want to see where Misfits decide to use that. Still trading in the top lane. Alphari has a very small advantage, about 10, 11 CS or so, has been able to force Odoamne back, but Odoamne in the late game will have that key game-changing ultimate, which is really one of the main reasons you pick Ornn.
Yeah, also, for Misfits, remember we talked about them trying to find an early lead. We've seen a couple of attempts from Maxlore, yet to find anything successful. Due to their 2v2 trying to get a kill in the bot lane, Splyce are the ones that actually have this early game advantage, and the longer this game goes, the stronger their team fighting is going to get. Kaisa is always going to be the scariest late game hyper carry in the game. You only have to watch the LPL final earlier today to identify that. But in terms of actual team fighting and damage output, you have the Cassio who scales really well, you have the Varus, there's so much peel as well that Hansama is going to really struggle to just dive onto the backline, and then you even have to look at the engage options too. It's so much easier for Splyce to start off a fight. So we'll see how confident they are in forcing fights as Xerxe now caught up.
Yeah, we're going to see him pull back. Nisqy there as well, chasing onto Mikyx, pops the Unbreakable Will. Hansama on his way up. Kobbe eaten up by kaSing, keeps him alive for the moment. Nisqy's the first to fall. And now in the midst of it all, Xerxe has to flash the wall. Misfits able to collapse in their own jungle. kaSing trying to dodge away, but won't survive for much longer. 2 kills for Misfits.
So Misfits end up punishing Splyce for trying to really contest over a control ward, and with this Rift Herald available, Misfits may be able to siege on towards the tier 2 tower in the mid lane as well. Big mistake there from Splyce. Misfits more than happy to pick that one up.
Yeah, first tower blood for them as well, puts them about 1,300 gold ahead, which is devastating considering Splyce really had kept the early game pretty quiet. They'd done exactly what they wanted to do. They were scaling up, and then something like this happened.
So what happens here? We can see that Alistar actually joins the fight before kaSing can. Now, because he has his ultimate, he can bring the AD carry in. So originally, this is a 3 versus 4 in favor of Splyce. But look at how much damage Mikyx able to soak up, and then Hansama is left untouched. Kobbe ends up dealing with both bruises, and the combination of Hansama and Mikyx to very quickly take out the Cassio meant that Misfits were able to win the fight. And you've got to remember that in terms of early game skirmishing, Urgot and Aatrox are devastatingly strong. Very, very strong champions. And Splyce trying to force this fight when you only had the tier on your Cassio, and Kobbe was in the middle of all the bruises. Probably not the best decision-making there from Splyce.
When your 2-0 AD carry isn't actually getting any auto attacks off, it doesn't usually work out too well for you. Misfits getting vision control down towards this bottom side river once again. Maxlore has been in total control of those scuttlers, and I can't actually remember the last time Splyce had good vision awareness down towards this dragon. It's a Cloud Drake. Maxlore should be able to just do it by himself.
Well, look at that lifesteal he's getting as well. Jungle item combined with the passive. I'm actually curious, what is Maxlore maxing? He's went for Q into the E, still expected, even after the changes to the E. Still want to stick with the same max order. For the Urgot, for those interested, it's Q max into W max into the E max, and then obviously taking your ultimate whenever it is available. So that's kind of expected too. Your Q is your primary poke tool, and then your W is your shotgun legs, which is where a lot more of the damage will come later on into the game.
And W giving you a shield as well, which definitely helps out in these prolonged trades. With someone like Nisqy on the Cassio, he's continuing to scale up for the moment. Let's have a look at where we are in terms of items as well. Black Cleaver finished on Sencux. No first item in either of the AD carries yet, but building up towards Ginsu's if you're Han Summer, and Blade of the Ruin King for Kobbe.
So AD carry is working towards that first spike. Definitely always valuable for the Varus once he's got it primed and ready to go. Kaisa with the... Rage Blades.
Yeah, Ginsu's.
Often not what you see from many Kaisas these days. They prefer to go to Storm Blade into Rage Blade because that one item spike is that much more potent. This could imply that he may be going for a slightly different build, perhaps the AP Orient. So he goes this into the Nash's Tooth, into perhaps a Death Cap. Because they do feel like they've got a lot of AD damage. If they want a little bit more AP, could be a potential option. We'll see as the game progresses. As the Rage Blade now finished up for him, and the Rod of Age is done for Alphari as well. So that'll start stacking up as in the top lane, he's slowly been building up.
Got a tweet here from Soaz. Klepto Swain, question mark. Does Misfits want to go for holidays or what?
Apparently Soaz isn't a fan. I think I can see the logic, which is just getting to those item spikes that bit earlier, and against a tank matchup that you know you're not going to kill him. To me, it makes sense, or at least that's one reason for it, but perhaps Soaz feels that Phase Rush is just that much better.
Have to see how it plays out in the later team fights, because that's what Splyce have built this composition to do, to try and fight. Han Summer caught out with the Glacial Prison. The Ornn does not connect, and now Odoamne is not in the best of positions. Going to just try and get back towards his tower, which he'll manage for the moment. Pull in on kaSing. Alphari with a chase. Flash away from kaSing. Mikyx now in the midst of all of Splyce, but have to see if Odoamne can come and join this fight. Mikyx down. Misfits running back towards the river.
Chain CC there from Splyce was beautiful. On top of the miasma as well meant that Mikyx could not flash away even though he had it available. Misfits now in a 4 versus 5. Cassio still has the ultimate available if they want to continue on with the fight.
Looking for the poke. The claw came out from Alphari as well, but Splyce just trying to get the mid priority, pushing for the tower. If they can secure it now, that will be a very big swing of gold for them. Even out that gold score. kaSing rooted down once again. Alphari goes into the demonic ascension. The Swain, the bird is the word. Fear beyond death takes down kaSing. And now Splyce of the team running for the wins. Alphari still in the midst of them all, doing a lot of work. Run away from Odo. Han Summer still full HP. Trying to find the engagement, cannot quite connect. Sencux now steps forward, blocks for his AD carry. Misfits back as 5 strong in the mid lane.
Mikyx is now back, primed and ready for another fight. It ended up being a trade of supports overall, and a bit of farm being exchanged back and forth. But for Misfits, you've got to note that there was a huge wave in the bot lane that has now just been lost to the tower. No one on Splyce ended up picking that one up. And the same thing happened top, which means that the wave now bounced back. Misfits can pick this wave up, funnel it all into Han Summer. And overall, initially the fight looked pretty even, but in terms of map gain and overall gold gain, Misfits are the ones with the advantage.
Yeah, still about 2,000 gold ahead or so. Wondering how well that's going to scale up for them, because we said we wanted to see them get a strong early lead, especially for the Aatrox. At 15 minutes, it's about 1,200, 1,300, which isn't usually the gold lead we see for Misfits when they end up winning again.
True, but I think this is a fine gold lead for the time being. It means that you're not, number one, you're not in a neutral state, which means that coming into fights you will feel a little stronger. And the fact that your core items have been completed initially definitely sets you up quite nicely for these ensuing fights. So I think Misfits shouldn't be too worried. They just need to continue with their proactivity, and the issue with there is that I feel that you're relying on Mikyx's engages and flanks from the side of Maxlore and Alphari, which so far has proven to be a little more challenging for them, as it is often Splyce who are either finding these picks or forcing these fights.
At the moment, Misfits grouping up as 2 in the mid lane. Gonna get the second tier tower here. Nisqy, not really much he can do to defend. Doesn't have as much wave clear as he would like. Xerxe not in a great position here either as Mikyx engages in. Xerxe flashes the wall. Maxlore on the chase, trying to land those connections, but cannot quite connect for now.
So Kobbe and kaSing ended up taking the tower in the top lane. Misfits will be pretty happy with that trade. No side lane turrets yet secured for them as Hansama and Mikyx working their way around towards the top side. No ulti for Hansama. They can't commit, which means that the game goes back into a little bit more of a neutral state.
And I like a neutral state in a game like this.
Do you?
Yes, because in Picks and Bans, we discussed what this Misfits comp wanted to do. And we talked about how maybe they want a 1-3-1, maybe they want to scale. They've got these like bunch of bruisers. And we're starting to see a little bit like they want to skirmish. They want to find these flanks. They're setting up good vision control for it. But I wonder as the game progresses whether they'll still be able to enact that game plan.
Well, it definitely becomes harder, but like we're nowhere near the late game yet. You know, we're entering
20 minutes is basically late game.
More like as the early late game, as Deficio likes to say, the really early late game. No, you're kind of late game to me is kind of decided by items. So 3+ items is where I start to think, ooh, we're now approaching the late game. But 2 items, very solid mid-game. That's where you see a lot of like skirmishing and fighting, and that's kind of the point at which Misfits will feel very happy to try and fight. And now you can see like they have priority over mids. They're going to secure this bot lane tower. They're investing heavily into deep vision. I think so far the setups coming out from Misfits are pretty good. Splyce, they're not too afraid right now. The main objective they'll look to fight around is Baron. And with the fully stacked up and completed Seraphs from Nisqy, he's going to feel a little happier. Once the Morellonomicon is finished, he'll be more than happy to actually look for fights. 3 items is really when the Cassio properly turns online. But here we are. Movement down towards the Drake.
Dragon of the game, Splyce wants to contest. It's in the Inferno. Maxlore jumps across with the Umbral Dash. Not going to get back in this, and the Inferno will just be given across towards Splyce. Good little pickup from them, and shuts it away from Misfits.
So interesting that Maxlore didn't want to take the gamble. I guess he felt that his damage would not be high enough, especially without the support of his team, to be able to secure that in time. Now Splyce with priority mid and seeing that the Kaisa is top lane, felt confident enough to siege onto the mid-tier 1, but Sencux wave clear and the Alistar engage was enough to just scare Splyce away. So currently sitting in a 3,000 gold deficit, and the game kind of neutral right now. You'll see a lot of vision being set up around the Baron area as both teams look to threaten this objective.
Yeah, Misfits Baron taking feels relatively quick for me with the Urgot, Aatrox and the Swain alongside the Kaisa. Looks like you do quite a lot of damage. But on the other side, of course, Cassio and Varus are going to shred through any Baron if you ever get the opportunity to take it. But it's all been about Misfits having the vision control and catching Splyce out. Feels like Splyce are playing a little bit on the back foot here, just waiting to scale up, which has always been their way of playing, really. I was trying to think of a better way of putting that, but way of playing, it's always been their play style. Just nice and relaxed. They'll take it slow until 35 minutes and then they'll kill you in one team fight.
That is generally, that's actually what happened the last time they played.
Yeah.
Misfits were in a very healthy gold lead.
About 6,000 gold ahead.
Yep, and then Splyce found one team fight and won the game.
Yep.
So, Misfits, they don't really want that to happen again. Maxlore now level 13. Wow, level 13. There's a 2-level advantage on Xerxe.
Highest level in the game at the moment. Tied with a few other people. But
yeah,
still.
but that's actually impressive for a jungler. Means that he's definitely going to be pretty scary and relevant, especially with the Black Cleaver done. So, I have this bad habit of saying that the jungle item is not actually an item.
It's definitely an item.
Yeah, right, but you know how often we say fully completed, but we don't think of boots as real items? I often have that habit with jungle items too, because they're like a core. You need them to jungle, so I often kind of undervalue their power value.
To the side,
But I will admit that that jungle item combined with Black Cleaver on an Aatrox is a lot of damage.
It's pretty devastating.
So I definitely think that this 2-item spike for the Aatrox can definitely be respected and considered. And now I just kind of want to see Misfits force on it. You can see the Righteous Glory is done for Sencux, so he is going more towards that team fight build. It's really effective because what it does is it gives you that bonus movement speed, and then once it gets close, it applies the slow as well, which means that it's really easy to rotate around the target and get all the shotgun legs off into the enemy, which deals a lot of damage.
Just want to say as a doctor, the anatomy is shotgun knees. His entire legs are not shotguns.
True.
Purely his knees.
But surely the shotguns would be built into his legs.
Into his knee. It's like tiny little baby shotgun.
Oh, I see. That makes sense. I don't know.
I didn't study crab creature
maybe he has to do squats in order to fire them, you know?
It's possible. It's possible.
He is pretty hench.
Vision once again set up around the Baron for Misfits here. Going towards the Nash's Tooth as well. Next
Look at the side lanes. You can see top and bot being pushed in. This is where Misfits can really start to threaten something. Either they can start the Baron and try and get a TP out from one of the members of Splyce, or they can look to maybe force a fight or a pick.
You said you expect Righteous Glory Urgot to start some fights. Well, that's what we're looking for now. Misfits pushing in this mid lane. Odo's down towards bottom side. Has the teleport if he needs to join up his fight, but Misfits going to come down here instead.
Yeah, they're just rotating straight towards the bot lane. They're not going to threaten the Baron. Their deep vision towards top side didn't really get them much because Splyce still have a lot of vision around their own half of the jungle. And while Misfits have full control over the river, Splyce don't really care because they have complete information as to where Misfits are.
It's these 1 or 2 wards that haven't been swept away that is really allowing Splyce to play patiently here.
Yep.
Because if you take away that ward, Splyce have to be so much safer.
Yeah. And there was the risk for a die, but I'm just surprised. That's not, in the handbook, that's not typically what you do. You either start the Baron, force the TP, or you kind of gain full control of enemy jungle, and then you look for a potential pick. Misfits decided to do neither.
They've written their own handbook. They have a 1-year plan.
But it got them nothing, so...
I'm not saying it's perfect. It's a different handbook, Vedius.
Well, still, Misfits at a healthy gold lead. It has kind of stagnated at about 3.5k. Splyce still scaling up. That Varus, now with the Rage Blade and Blade of the Ruin King, feeling pretty happy. Once he's got his 3rd item, he's going to be very happy. Same for Nisqy. Now Mikyx by himself in the jungle.
Chains used, Unbreakable Will as well for Mikyx. We'll use the Blast Cone to get away. But
so that's kind of why you get that vision with your team. You have to have control over the lanes, force Splyce to split up, and then you get the vision. Getting it by yourself just cost you an ultimate, and now if you wanted to try and fight, it becomes that much harder. It ends up being an ulti for ulti, which isn't the end of the world, but your frontline engage tool for Misfits is now unavailable. And Splyce, they're going to keep feeling happy. Things still going in their way. They haven't fallen behind too much, and they're in a good teamfight position.
Yeah, Alphari shows down towards the bottom lane with a big wave, means that Splyce can push forward a little bit to try and get more vision around
top wave
the
as
Baron,
well.
But top wave pushing in, as you say, Misfits very good at pushing in these side lanes and then making Splyce have to answer that pressure.
But they need to do something in this window. This is where you need to be threatening. And right now, Splyce to me don't feel very threatened. They're not under any pressure. They're just like, oh, well,
We'll scale.
We'll go get the farm and then we'll come back. And like we talked a lot about it in terms of scale. I don't know why their focus is trying to kill Odoamne.
He has a track record of getting caught out in side lane.
True, but he hasn't this game.
Yeah, but all it takes is once. And you get the,
and then you can make the stat, right?
All it takes is once. One ISO death, and then we can mess around with the numbers a little bit. kaSing caught out here with the double engage. kaSing flashes away. Xerxe assaults to safety. Alphari coming in the back line of this fight, but Mikyx so low, he's done. Odo's going to keep Alphari busy, and now Splyce can turn the fight around. Infernal Drake up in just a couple of seconds. This fight could be monumental in the state of the game. Alphari goes into the Demonic Ascension, but really not doing too much. Can wait for its timeout. Glacial Prison used. Alphari is gone, and now Misfits have been absolutely shredded in the jungle. Kobbe keeps himself alive for the moment, and Summer jumps in. There's one! The AD carry from Misfits coming up big in the final moments, perhaps, of the fight. Maxlore, Sencux, and Hansama will escape for the moment, but Splyce do get their reward. It's an Infernal Drake.
And Splyce didn't have to do anything there because that was a terrible engage from Mikyx. We already talked about his lack of ultimate. He just flashes into 3 members of Splyce, and while the engage initially looks good, Hansama doesn't immediately follow up. The Urgot isn't there for a flank. The Swain is not in a position to get involved because he's zoned out by Odoamne, and because Mikyx isn't tanky enough, he ends up just melting. So Splyce go, oh, okay, we'll take this free fight, and now they can just continue. 5 versus 4, things are feeling pretty good. This is where things start to look a little more positive for Misfits because a lot of damage is soaked up by Alphari. Maxlore does a huge amount of damage onto Kobbe, which means that Hansama can come in from the flank and secure that kill, but Maxlore just barely gets away with his life, and they're able to trade 1 for 2, but they lose an Infernal Drake. So Splyce, they're feeling very happy right now. They're continuing to scale up. They now have 2 Infernal Drakes on a Cassio and a Varus. So things are looking really good for Splyce, and even though you're at this gold deficit, like, you're still feeling pretty happy, and with the engage tools that you have, you can just look to force these fights a little bit later on, especially with some of these summoners now unavailable.
Splyce are very comfortable playing from behind, about 3,000 gold behind in this game, but Misfits did do something. It's what we said we wanted them to do with the side lane pressure. They just didn't do the right thing. Would have liked to see them go for the Baron.
It just felt so forced, you know? Like, you had so many better opportunities earlier, and in this instance, you're just like, all right, I'm going in.
I mean, Moose did say in the pre-game interview, we want to stop Splyce from stalling, and maybe Mikyx there was like, okay, Splyce have stalled for a long time, we need to break this. and went for the engage. Felt perhaps there was a little bit of
But I
pressure.
mean, if you want to stop Splyce stalling, then use the Baron, right?
Yeah.
Because the Baron is a much more reliable way to force the enemy team in. You'd at least get a teleport out, and remember that you have a TP of your own, plus you have the spellbook on Sencux to TP around, so... Yeah, I feel Misfits right now have kind of failed to stop the stalling of Splyce, and we're going to get to a point where we do get to see Splyce's team fighting, and we know that is their biggest strength. I will definitely be keeping my eyes on Nisqy as well. We already talked about his playoff buff, and I feel that he's in a prime position to be a huge carry for this team.
Have to keep our eyes on Kobbe as well.
Yeah.
4-1-1 on that Varus, building up towards that third item, getting towards the late game that we identified earlier on. Hansama in that last fight did a lot of work, has the Nash's Tooth now. The question becomes, can he match an AD carry that has just more behind him?
Odo is super tanky, Xerxe is super tanky. I like this shift towards the... I've forgotten the name of it. What's the ninja helmet?
Adaptive helm.
Adaptive helm. I love this item against champions like Kaisa and Cassio, especially Varus as well. Just those on-hit kind of builds. It's really effective with the amount of damage that you can reduce. So I like that pickup from Xerxe, also like it from Sencux. Maxlore could be in some trouble now, but he can just about dash over the wall. Where do they have that priority? I believe bot wave is slowly pushing in favor of Splyce. They're actually looking for a collapse on top.
Here comes the Tahm Kench, Abyssal Voyage. Joins the fight now. It's a 4v3 for the moment. Teleport coming in. Chain of Corruption does not connect. Splyce might just want to disengage now. Not sure you want to force anymore. Sencux on his way up on the Urgot. Still a little bit of time before he joins this fight. kaSing cleanses away. And it's just going to spit out his teammate.
So what was used there? Varus ultimate, Tahm Kench ultimate. Not much gained off the back of that. Everything is available for Misfits, which means that the map kind of resets right now. Splyce have the wave slowly pushing bot. This isn't actually great for them because the problem with slow pushes is a lot of unused farm ends up not going anywhere. So they have to make sure that when that wave gets close to the tower, they force something. Because you want to try and force Misfits to lose that gold as well. But Misfits are actually just starting this one off. Very little information for... They have no idea. They have no idea.
They've got no vision there. Maybe the vision red by will make Xerxe think. Maybe he'll now think, maybe, are they there? It's possible.
They're going to get it.
3,000 HP, Misfits just going to be able to secure the Baron here. They've snuck it away under the very noses of Splyce. There's the Baron. Misfits finally make the call they need, and Mikyx is going to be the sacrifice for it. He will fall at the end of this fight. Alphari chased out by Odoamne as well. Doesn't quite time the knock-up. Alphari gets a double root. He's going to keep running away for the moment. Kobbe on the chase here as well. Maxlore off towards the side, but Splyce can't push any further. They don't have the vision.
So Misfits end up picking themselves up a pretty clean Baron. Splyce, after that bit of an exchange up top lane, weren't expecting Misfits to just rush it down, and they did it as a two-man. Maxlore with the lifesteal was able to tank it up for long enough, combined with the damage from Hansama, means that that's a big objective that now makes sieging that much easier for them, and it's also a win condition that's taken away from Splyce. So Splyce dropping the ball there a little bit, open up the map, and Misfits now in a much more convincing position than they were in earlier.
Yeah, getting Baron 31 minutes in, 4,000 gold ahead. You've got 3 items on your Kaisa with the Zhonya's, you've got 3 items on your Urgot, 3 items on your Aatrox, 3 items on your Swain. You are in a very strong position, especially if you want to go for that 1-3-1, which is what they're doing right now.
So they do have teleport on Sencux, unavailable for Alphari, but I believe that top wave is slowly starting to push up. He's playing a little bit more reserved because he's not entirely sure where the rest of the Splyce members are. But now we want to see this siege coming out from Misfits. Remember that there's a lot of short-range members on this Misfits side, and there's a decent amount of wave clear on the side of Splyce, so they may have to go for a dive or just rely on their split push pressure in order to break into the base of Splyce.
A minute of the Baron buff is already gone, and we actually haven't seen Misfits get anything out of it. They have a big wave up towards the top lane. Splyce going to get a tower for themselves. But the question becomes for me now, Misfits looked apprehensive when they were playing for the Baron. Now with the Baron, can they actually take the game by the scruff of the neck?
Well, that's the big question. Again, it is hard. They show a lot of respect to the engage tools on Splyce. They know that that damage is nothing to scoff at with the 3 items now finished for Kobbe. The needlessly large rod picked up as well for Nisqy. You really do have to make sure that you're not overcommitting for any objective, and that's why they're playing the slow, patient game. But bot wave is building up. You can see that Maxlore's getting ahead of the wave. Ulti just sidestepped there from Hansama.
Did lose a chunk of his health, though, in response. No wave here yet for Misfits, still way back towards where their first tower would be. Sencux pushing in the bottom lane. Teleport is up for Odo if he wants to get down there, but might just run towards it instead.
So now all 3 waves are pushing in. Misfits should be able to get at least 1 tower off the back of this. Not the biggest Baron power play we've ever seen, but unfortunately that's the situation you're in with the siege that you have with your comp. Aatrox still pushing up mid, but he has no wave to support him, and Splyce still holding on.
Yep. Splyce stalling tactics once again. They do it so well. We saw them do it throughout the course of the split. Alphari eventually will take down the tower. It ends up being a 1 tower for 1 tower trade up until this point with the Baron. A little bit of damage.
Tower's gonna go down as well. Oh, Odo drew aggro.
That's the mark of a great top laner.
Yep. Yet to die, hasn't been caught out this game so far. But Misfits are playing the side lanes very well. Splyce, a little hesitant to actually force a fight right now. They're waiting for the Baron buff to run out, but I feel like that engage has to come from them soon. They do have a really good team fighting comp. Question is, where do they engage onto? Xerxe's ulti just about to come back up. Kobbe has his, Odo has his. There's no Baron available, so maybe they just feel like right now it's not worth fighting because they wouldn't be able to get much off the back of it. But that big team fight definitely lying in wait from the side of Splyce. The double Infernal there as well.
Baron buff has expired. Splyce did not lose an inhibitor tower or an inhibitor, so their base is still in good shape. 2,000 gold off that Baron, not the most monumental advantage off it. Misfits will secure an Ocean Drake as well. So about 5,000 gold ahead. Let's have a look at where that sits. 2,000 gold lead actually up in the top lane for Alphari with that Kleptomancy. 2,000 in the jungle as well, and then the rest of the map, it's relatively even.
Low kill game.
10 kills in 34 minutes?
After watching the LPL this morning.
Yeah, but we watched LCK and there were 4 at 30.
There were.
So I'm pretty happy with this.
Big difference in styles. But like when you think of Misfits, you think a lot of skirmishing, a lot of fighting, a little more action.
But they had to fix the mistakes they had in the Vitality series. We heard Moose talk about it. He said there were some glaring errors that we had to fix.
I think draft was one of their biggest issues. Yeah. And even now, I'm not entirely sold on their draft, but it is working for the time being. A lot of that is coming off the back of, honestly, Maxlore's great play on the Aatrox, kind of saving some of the potentially dire situations. Now, everyone is grouping up mid. Here's the team fight. It's guaranteed to happen. Odoamne on the flank. Where is that Ornn?
Okay, you literally just said it's guaranteed to happen, and then they just...
Oh, Splyce, go!
Splyce, 1 to force. Still 2 minutes on the Baron, though, so they're waiting.
Look at top wave. You can see big wave stacking up for Splyce, right? Baron is spawning in 2 minutes. They're going to be waiting for this objective. Ooh, that's a lot of poke damage coming out from Xerxe. Sorry, onto Xerxe.
Chunked out just a little bit. Splyce trying to get mid priority back for themselves. Misfits not giving it to them easily. Level 18 on Maxlore, on Sencux, on Alphari. They are all at maximum level, whereas no one from Splyce is yet to get to that mark.
Now this is actually great for Misfits because with no minion waves being there in the mid lane, Hansama can just pick this one up for free. So Splyce missed their window, unfortunately for them, but because the Baron is spawning soon, they would rather wait to force a fight closer to the spawn time so they can then quickly turn a successful team fight into a Baron objective, which means the Misfits can push out both mid and top. They can they're able to maintain control over River while also picking up a couple of extra control wards. In fact, Hansama just sold his control. Oh no, he put it down, I thought he sold it. I was going to give him a disappointing chat then.
I mean, there's only 3 control wards on Misfits at the moment.
No, but it's fine, because they've put them down. You can see there's one in the Tri-Brush, there's one in the Baron Pit, there's one just outside the Baron Pit, and Alphari has one, and Mikyx on 2. So they're fine. Splyce are the ones that are looking to try and reclaim some of the vision. That's why their inventory is stocked with it. But 30 seconds. If Splyce are going to force a fight, now is going to be the time. We've talked so much about their late-game team fighting. They owe us at least one. I feel like we've talked about it enough that, you know, that's how that's the transitive properties, right?
We'll get some at some point. I want Kobbe to hit level 16 first as well, which is probably what Splyce are waiting for.
There's Infinity Edge as well. Scary stuff.
4-item AD carry.
Yep.
Kobbe has been the most consistent member for Splyce. Looking back across the organization's history, he's the only guy that came up with the team in that rookie split. Yeah. The only guy that went to Worlds that is still on this Splyce lineup.
Can he take the team to Worlds once again? They have a long road ahead of them. Misfits is the one that currently stands in their way. 38-minute mark. A lot of items being completed. Misfits have priority top. Odo is in mid first, so he's going to get that push. You can also see that Alphari, oh no, Sencux is down, but he does have the teleport available as well. A lot of sweepers coming out as Misfits try to maintain vision control over the top side of the jungle. Hansama.
Call of the Forge God does not hit Hun Summer. That's one ultimate down, and now Splyce get back towards their base. Misfits still in a 4v5 here. Splyce want to find the engage. Chain of Corruption is available. Root on Nisqy. Hun Summer jumps forward, trying to take out the Cassiopeia. Mikyx in the midst of it all. Xerxe going low down towards the bottom side as well. Mikyx down first. Xerxe still alive, healed up, eaten up by kaSing. And Splyce have found the team fight that they needed, but Sencux comes in to join the party. And he's looking for the Fear Beyond Death. Does not connect. Only hits kaSing. Splyce can now try and turn this one back around.
Excellently played there by kaSing, as Xerxe was taking so much damage, but just before he falls, he ends up getting gobbled up. The save being extremely useful. I know I'm using it in the wrong context, but it doesn't matter.
You can use it in whatever context you want.
kaSing doing a great job. Now they have 5 members. The jungler is still alive. They can now gain priority around the Baron, and they can be the ones to force this objective.
After we saw the Call of the Forge God miss, I thought Splyce had missed their moment. Waves pushing in for Misfits. Maxlore on his way. We talked about the Baron take it so quick. Maxlore jumps forward, Umbral dash, doesn't get the smite. Odo secures it for his team, and now Hun Summer's trying to jump on towards the backline. Nisqy gets away to the top side. Sencux can't get the damage down, and Splyce survive once again.
Splyce walk away with the Baron. Neither jungler actually secured the objective, but there was the late game fight. Not quite as dramatic as I was hoping for, but we got it. Splyce won it. They now have the Baron, and while they are at a gold deficit, they can reclaim some control back over the map.
Definitely can. Only 5,000 gold behind, less than 10% difference between the two teams. Let's have another look at this Baron take.
So, Maxwell, he does have the flash. Doesn't flash. Oh, he flashed in at the last second. The smite comes down. Not enough damage, and ends up going down to Odoamne. Now, Sencux, he tries to get the kill down onto Nisqy. But remember, oh, did he have his ultimate available? I was convinced that it was still on cooldown after the last fight that had happened, which is why he couldn't use it onto Nisqy. But even so, Splyce walk away with all 5 members. They get themselves the Baron buff onto all 5 members. And now they can start taking down some of these towers that they weren't able to take down earlier on into the game. That gold gap is rapidly starting to close, and the Elder is about to spawn.
Either team getting this gets a monumental buff. Looking at an extra 90 true damage, plus that 45 you get from the base as well for Splyce. An extra 135 for Misfits. Taking over on your opponents. We've seen the last time Splyce fought over an Elder Dragon, it was against Sjokz in the quarterfinals, and it cost them the game. This time, they don't have to worry about the backdoor, but maybe they have to worry about Misfits. Mikyx on the flank, going to try and hex flash across this wall to get in position. Here he goes, channeling. You can see it going. Mikyx looking for the flank, and Misfits looking for the fight. Double knockup. Sencux in the midst of them all as well, and now Splyce need to survive. Already Mikyx down. Odo is the only one to fall low on the side of Splyce, and he's going to call to the gods to help him. As Sencux gets himself to safety, but already Splyce have taken down 2.
This is another big fight there for Splyce. They don't need to commit to the Elder Dragon anymore. They can just keep their eyes on the mid lane. They have the Baron buff available. They want to secure an inhibitor, and this is the late game fighting that we talk so much about. They just melted through Mikyx. Even through his ultimate, it did not matter to the damage of Kobbe and Nisqy. As the front line disappeared from Misfits, they didn't have enough damage to kill the back line. Nisqy got extremely low, but it didn't matter. The peel was there from the side of Splyce. They now have their eyes set on a second inhibitor.
Not going for the full win yet. They will take the gold lead for the first time in about 25 minutes. They get the second inhibitor. Elder Drake's still available for them as well. kaSing gets the safety, and Splyce in such a strong spot now.
And Misfits, they had a good early lead. They had control, but they didn't force anything. They didn't put the pressure onto Splyce. Splyce were able to stall out. They now got to this point, and they're utilizing on their team fight strength as Odo. Hey, is he finally caught out?
We told you he'd get solo killed at least once, Vedius. It's chased down by Misfits, but Splyce have started the Elder because of it. Misfits trying to come down and join this party, but
they're not gonna get there.
kaSing will do this incredibly quickly. Xerxe on his way as well. There's the Elder Dragon going over to Splyce, and they solidify their grip on this game.
Double Infernal as well, so Odo's death offered a lot of value for Splyce this time around. In the quarterfinals, he was a big weak point for the team, but he's been a consistent rock as Kobbe and Nisqy have come up huge. kaSing as well. This man's Tahm Kench is providing a huge amount of peel in these team fights. Whenever Misfits get super close to killing someone, he is the guy that ends up turning it around. So, Splyce now in a prime position. They finally reclaim the gold, but
everyone is pretty much at full build anyway. The 2 carries are where they need to be. And even though they've lost the Baron buff, there's only 1 lane for them left to push through.
It's a bit of a difference between the 2 Baron power players. Yep. Misfits got about 2,500 gold. Splyce got about 7,500 gold. And the Elder Dragon to buff out their pockets as well. Only this bottom lane left for them to push. Odoamne is going to teleport in. And you can see once again, this is almost exactly the same story as when Misfits played Splyce last.
Not quite as dramatic as the last time, but definitely a similar story. Misfits holding control over the vast majority of the game, but failing to apply the pressure that they had for so much of the map. Now Splyce running it down at the final lane that they need to pressure onto. They're looking to take game 1.
Here they go. Xerxe waiting around the corner in case someone from Misfits steps up too far. Waiting for those minion waves as well. Top pushed in, mid on its way. Splyce just 1 inhibitor away from victory. 1 inhibitor away from, well, being a step closer to Worlds as well. That's what all these teams are playing for in the gauntlet. Still G2 and Sjokz stand in their way, but claiming game 1 over Misfits would be a great start to their weekend.
Siege is slow and steady. Splyce just need to wait for the super minions to do the work for them.
There we are.
There is no need for Splyce to overcommit, overforce. Really the story of their game. And they're just waiting for Misfits to make a mistake. Like, they will eventually take this tower. The Elder Drake is running out soon. But yeah, it's just the patience game right now for Splyce.
Odo trying to tank it up with the Bella's Breath there. Was pulled back. Plasma stacking up on him, but he will just regenerate with that Warmogs. Needs to wait 6 seconds for it to reset. Call of the Forge God used instead, trying to force them away from the tower. The cannon wave, Hans Summer locked in the Glacial Prism, but cleanses away from it now. Down towards the bottom side of the fight, Mikyx has been caught as well. Xerxe jumps forward, the tower goes down. Odo at about half HP, that's all Splyce wanted. Look for the reset, look for Odo to start regaining that HP. There we are, 112 a tick. And as he regens, he can just force forward towards the final inhibitor. Minion wave still pushing in the top and bottom. Misfits know they have 1 last shot, 1 last opportunity to dive in, 1 last chance to find a fight. But Maxlore's trying to get that flank off. He just can't get in position. And with no true engage apart from Mikyx, it's so difficult. The flash forward only lands on kaSing. Maxlore comes in for the flank as well, but he's already chunked out. Mikyx solo, Odo in the front, tanking up all of Misfits. A great dive in from Maxlore. Is it enough? Hans Summer follows him up, but Hans Summer just trying to do what he can. Goes gold and gets the GA down off Kobbe. Misfits coming out in this fight. Hans Summer's dead now. It's a 3v3. It's a battle of the bruisers. Odo, Xerxe and kaSing trying to fight against the 3 carries from Misfits. That's 1. Fear Beyond Death knocks them back, but the minions are on the Nexus, and Misfits get backdoored by Splyce.
The minions doing what Splyce could not do in the end, which was take the base of Misfits. The fight was looking pretty promising, but Splyce ended up coming out on top, and they didn't need to do anything in this game. They just wanted to wait for the late game team fights. And funnily enough, they were allowed to wait to the late game team fights where they played them very well. A lot of credit to kaSing, the way in which he peeled at the right moment. He didn't waste a long cooldown on that consume. Kobbe, always in a position to be able to dish out damage, but knowing he had the safety of kaSing as well. And then Nisqy, just a constant damage threat. 1, 2, and 10. But if you end up looking at the end of game damage, you can see that a huge contributor was Nisqy and of course Kobbe on the Varus. So really good stuff from Splyce, playing towards their win conditions, definitely a little bit slow, but the reality is Misfits couldn't pressure hard enough. They had an early game gold lead. We saw they were at a 6.9k advantage, yet they didn't pressure enough. They never used the Baron, they snuck it away, they didn't get much off the back of it, and admittedly it is hard to siege with that composition, but we could have seen them try and force more fights in the early game. We could have seen them try to be a little more proactive, a little more creative, but instead, the game got too long and it ended up being a big win for Splyce.
Yeah, I mean, even when we saw them with the gold lead at 15 minutes, we brought it up and we said, usually Misfits, when they win, are further ahead than this. Usually they've forced a little bit more tempo. They've been a little bit more proactive. And I actually think Splyce's minions put more pressure on the map than Misfits did at any point in that game.
Yeah, it's very true. Got to throw a bit of criticism towards Mikyx as well. His Alistar was not the best in the third place match and definitely made a couple of questionable decisions this time around as well. Trying to get deep vision without the rest of his team, trying to force an engage without the proper setup. Hopefully Misfits can apply a little bit more pressure throughout this series, otherwise Splyce primed and ready to take the series.
Yeah, reason people are picking them up as one of the best teams in the gauntlet. We're going to send it over to the analyst desk to break down game one.
Well, thank you very much, Medic. Splyce takes game one. I have to say, for all we boasted about it being the most competitive gauntlet ever, this does have a bit of a semblance of the first game in a best-of-5 of possibly a long week. I think we can identify that on both teams. Players seem like they have to get into it a bit. It's very slow. There were a lot of mistakes made on either side that they want to clean up, but Splyce in the end has the clearer mind in game one.
I mean, Splyce, classic Splyce fashion, make it to late game, and then they get some big late game team fights.
Yeah, they get late game team fights, but I think it is fitting that it is the minions who had their head in the game the most.
True.
Let's take a look at the final replay, and in the end, how Splyce win. Well, these little guys do it for him.
I'm really wondering if the shot call was from Splyce, just keep fighting because our minions finish. Or
Probably.
Everybody was just like, oh, we won.
It was definitely not the shot calling from Misfits right there in their case, but I mean, it does fit because I think the biggest problem in this game and why I think we can say this was just, it was a week or game one kind of thing, was just like mechanically the amount of missed skill shots. Luckily, minions have no skill shots.
Yeah.
They cannot miss them. They will hit the Nexus, and Splyce figured that out.
Who knows? Splyce was, you know, doing some motivational talks with the minions to say, guys, you can do this. This is your moment. However, all jokes aside, this is still a very important series. So I think if it's a bad game or a good game or whatever, Splyce did win it, and that is the most important thing, and they're going into game two with a positive head. Now, let's take a look back at picks and bans. Very interesting. Hussein said, we have a lot prepared, and well, lo and behold, a Aatrox for Maxlore, Swain for Alphari, and Urgot for Sencux, all the first time we've seen this from them. So, Sheepy, what do you think of the fact that Hussein and Misfits decided to go as creative with their first draft?
Yeah, I think the first 3 picks were good, and then they went Unicorns of Love and just picked, you know, weird stuff and weird lanes. And I think that Misfit definitely had a chance to take the game in the mid game. They have Kaisa 2 items. I think she also went not with the Death Dance build, she went like a different one. And yeah, now.
What do you think of the draft, Chief?
Yeah, I think
From both
overall,
sides.
I overall think that the first 3 picks for Misfit were already super, super strong, and I was very, very surprised by how effective the Aatrox was.
Yes.
I think the Swain wasn't really doing much in this game. There was too much medium threat targets, so you know you run into a Varus, you want to run into Cassiopeia and a Sejuani. That I really didn't like, and I think that after the first 3 picks, they could have really just facilitated the Kaisa and the Alistar together for really strong team fights and just win the game off of that. But they, you know, they decided to go a little bit more fancy, and I really
Splyce,
like
a
it.
lot of comfort for them.
I mean, just a lot of comfort, a lot of scaling, a very safe bot lane as well. Like, super strong laner in Varus. Tahm Kench is still a fine laner, especially now with a little bit reduced cooldown on Q. And you can use the one Devour in case someone tries to go for an early gank against you. So I think it was just a very classic Splyce draft. Now, but just very quickly to the Misfits one, like, I think the draft was great.
Yeah.
To me, this mid game is nuts. Like, these guys on the Splyce side are not going to kill your massive bruisers, and both Aatrox and Urgot are tanky enough, and actually Swain as well. They're tanky enough in the mid game that you can't burst them, and they deal enough damage to kill squishy targets. So to me, they had all the tools to snowball this game. Sadly, they don't know how to use the tools.
I think that is the TLDR for Misfits and how they approach this game. I did want to pull up the keys to victory from Splyce just before that. Actually, just comically, because one of the points we said is that, you know, stay safe in that bottom lane, hang around mid with Xerxe and Nisqy,
Yep.
and bot lane must survive the early game.
They
because
did.
Traditionally, when you look at a Misfits bottom lane versus Splyce, you know that Splyce wants to go late, and Misfits want to go ham in the early game bot when they can. However, if we pull up the first replay, and I think this kind of spelled what we were going to see from Mikyx's Alistar, unfortunately, for the rest of the game, they give up first blood, and right after, they're also give up another kill.
See, this is great. This is not great.
Yeah. And I think also you should have spaced out the W and the Q from the Alistar, or does W, E, and then into Q flash. But overall, bot lane, I think, after the first kind of suicide from Mikyx, really underperformed. Mikyx overall also had very questionable plays in the game where he's just jumping in without ultimate and this kind of stuff. Didn't seem so coherent. I really think we should all expect way, way more from the next coming series, and I think the players themselves know that as well. We have seen like snippets of how they are talking, and I think the coaches will also make clear that the mentality is better for next game.
Because this is what I want to see. These kind of fights where the bruisers are like in melee range, it's really difficult for either Cassiopeia or Varus to just stand still and auto attack because you're constantly getting chased around, CC'd. Like, you always need to move away from Urgot so he doesn't just get the ult onto you. Like, these kind of things. Like, that fight was fine, but the start and
And the middle.
See, I thought when we picked the two deaths in the start would make it like, okay, it's not going to get worse.
No.
But it got worse. You know, you already said it. You know, he engaged without ulti. He misses combos. Like, he is one of the most important players on this team. They will put him on engage because that's how they often start fights. And if they are going to snowball against Splyce, they need engaged supports that are executed properly.
And it almost felt like it was the other way around between Mikyx, the guy that we expect a lot from and to engage and whatnot, and Odoamne, who we had our doubts about after his quarterfinal match. He did show up today on Ornn. Granted, it is a very good champion for him. It doesn't matter. It's about pulling the trigger. He missed a couple of Ornn horns,
I think,
notwithstanding. But in the important ones, he came through.
Yeah, I think that Odoamne can also do a little bit better for the next game. I
We're
think
very negative, but I mean, it was.
No.
I mean,
It was
we're
not
honest.
great.
We're
It was
being
not
honest.
great.
We're really
We're
being
being
honest here, and I think the players see that too, and that's
Yeah.
why all the faces when we saw them, they were very concerned. People were really talking a lot, and you don't always have that. And I think that's a good sign. And honestly, it also kind of shows the scene how important that is for the people, because that's not usual something that we're expecting from the players of that caliber. They are the 6 best teams in Europe, right? And we have seen them going toe-to-toe with teams like Schalke and so on and so forth. So, or beating G2 just in a 3-0
Yeah.
sweep. So definitely showing a lot of nerves. And I hope that over the games, maybe people become more comfortable, because one of the biggest points for such a long series, the best of 5, is the mentality and how it changes over that.
Exactly, and I actually asked some of the players, you know, before we went live, if playing in the gauntlet, is it a different feeling compared to playing like in normal playoffs? And they're all like 100% because it's your last chance. And Sheepy, you said
And
this in the intro
I really
as well.
think that the people are also, when you're seeing them, they're standing in front of each other and they're just second guessing them all the time. We see the top lane engaged from Splyce, they were 5 versus 3 or something like this, but Misfit was that, and they just didn't feel confident pulling the trigger. And I hope that those kind of nerves are going down a little bit, because mental fortitude really is the #1 key to victory.
I think that's
here.
a great point, and it reflects the fact that if you don't win this series, you're done for this year. There is
long
no summer
holiday.
split. There is nothing else. You're absolutely done, so you have to put it all on the line. With that in regard, I'd like to take a look at the final replays of this game. Specifically, Splyce came out on top, and as said in the mid-game, when Misfits is supposed to be incredibly strong, Splyce finds a way. So how do they turn these fights around?
I mean, first up, Misfit, Mikyx just jumps in there without ultimate, so just suicides himself. No follow-up was there as well, so this is now a 5 versus 4. They are starting to go for the team fight. And honestly, right now it's a little bit hard for either side to make progress here. They are going easy for the Swain, and I think after this it's just an easy follow-up.
Aatrox,
Look at
though.
the damage
What?
of Aatrox.
That's your jungler, by the
Yeah.
way,
Yes.
doing that.
And also, I think Maxlore was 130 CS up in the end from Xerxe. So, you know, even though I really do think Maxlore is a standout player for the Misfits squad, and maybe they should put him on a champion like Kindred. And here,
The sequence of events is also quite hilarious.
I mean, it's just a lot of things with it, obviously. Like, at this point here, we're looking at Hans Sama to be the big carry on Misfits. And what a lot of Kaisa players love to do is when your engage hits, you know, anything in the backline, you jump in with the Kaisa and you kind of dodge around and try and kill a carry. But they didn't get to the backline. Look at Kobbe and Nisqy to the left. They're literally untouched.
yes, and then Swain is just flashing forwards into a Varus Cassiopeia. I mean, that's what we talked about in the pick and ban, right? They needed to do that in the early mid-game when there's not 2 or 3 items on the carries, or 4 items even. And I think, you know, Kobbe here really always safe, always was peeling off the front line, and deservedly really, really good scoreline. And I think we also expected that from him. He played 5 different ADCs in the last match that he played. And yeah, stepping up huge, and I think we're gonna see more of that from Kobbe.
And I think this was such a classic Kobbe game, like super consistent, everything he's doing, not flashy whatsoever. But when you have Kobbe on your team, what you expect from him is good positioning, you know, a lot of damage in team fights as long as you peel for him. And we got to see a bunch of fights here where the engage did not hit him, and he just turns it around. And Varus, if he gets to stand still and auto attack, deals insane amount of damage with items. So.
And comfort zone for Splyce. They have the longest average game time in the EU LCS in summer. This is what they want, and this is what Kobbe wants. And it worked out
They also
great
had a
for them.
Cassiopeia and an Ornn, so, you know, the later the game
all
goes,
there, baby.
they were just like, okay,
So
we're
very
gonna win this.
quickly, the players are almost ready. We're going to take a quick break and then come back. But Misfits is now on the back foot. They have chosen blue. When I watch this game, I think Misfits, give me something in the early game. You know, I know you're spiking in the mid game, but start setting that up earlier. Is that the main advice you would give them for going into game 2?
I think I would give them the advice that they should be a little bit more proactive. There should be some mental coaching there and just saying, hey guys, we had really the game in our hands. We were 7k up or something like this. And we had the setup for Nashor. How come we didn't pull the trigger? What's going on? And I think after this, that should be clear.
Pensive Alphari, not often see him like that.
No,
alone
this
on
is
stage
not a
doing,
good sign.
On his own, always a little bit interesting. All started by Reckless. A lot of players trying to follow up the trend. But I think if I'm Misfits, like as the large coaching staff they have, like I would go straight to Mikyx and just be like, dude, forget this game. You know, yes, you had a horrible start. It clearly affected you during the game. But if we're going to win before we go full late game against Splyce, they need Mikyx to perform. So I think him stepping up in game 2 compared to game 1 is the biggest change they need. They can go for the exact same draft, but better Alistar play.
We'll see what happens. It is a long road for both teams, but for Splyce, they got off to a great start against Misfits. We will see if they can take us to match point right after this.
Is available. Root on Nisqy. Hansama jumps forward, trying to take out the Cassiopeia. Mikyx in the midst of it all. Xerxe going low down towards the bottom side as well. Mikyx down first. Xerxe still alive, healed up, eaten up by kaSing. Maxlore jumps forward, Humble dash, doesn't get the smite. Odo secures it for his team, and Hansama's trying to jump on towards the backline. Nisqy gets away to the top side. Sencux can't get the damage down. The flank and Misfits looking for the bite. Double knockup. Sencux in the midst of them all as well, and now Splyce need to survive. Already Mikyx down. Odo is the only one to fall low on the side of Splyce, and he's going to call to the gods. Maxlore comes in for the flank as well, but he's already chunked out. Mikyx solo, Odo in the front, tanking up all of Misfits. A great dive in from Maxlore. Is it enough? Hansama follows him up, but Hansama just trying to do what he can. Goes gold and gets the GA down off Kobbe. Odo, Xerxe, and kaSing trying to fight against the 3 carries from Misfits. That's one. Fear Beyond Death knocks them back, but the minions are on the Nexus, and Misfits get backdoored by Splyce.